Hey everyone, and welcome to my little YouTube demonstration here. I'm going to be having a look at how to maintain a drum, give it a little bit of a health check, make sure everything is sort of working right and not, you know, likely to fail on you when you're out at a gig. I'm not going to get into the tuning side of things because I think that's been done to death, but what I do want to show you is just a couple of little tricks just to make sure everything's sort of working fine with your drums. So the reason I've got two drums out here is the maintenance of a drum does somewhat depend on what kind of drum that you have. These two drums here, one is a DW Collector Series and the other one is a Sonor Designer Series. They're both maple kits, but one's actually wrapped in a finish, one's wrapped, and this one over here, the Designer, is lacquered, so it's painted. Two different finishes that are going to require slightly different methods of care. Now, some tools you're going to need. A Phillips head screwdriver. This is going to be for taking the lugs off if you choose to go into it in that much detail. Of course, you don't have to. A tape measure. It's going to be very important. Any old tape measure is fine. And some cleaning products. I'm going to get into those a little bit later. But also a polishing cloth is going to be necessary as well. I'm using the Meguiar's cloth. I find that the Meguiar's as a brand, they're actually an auto car brand like Kitten and those sort of guys, but the Meguiar stuff's really, really good. Any of their chemicals that they use on their painted finishes for cars, etc., is actually very good on lacquered shells. It's all pH neutral, which means it's non-acidic. I wouldn't be using it on wrapped shells though. If you do have a wrapped shell, as in wrapped in the plastic and a colour, the best stuff I've found, there's a few different types of things you can use, but this stuff here, Novus, try and get yourselves a hold of this. This is actually a specific plastic cleaner. So this makes it really good for this type of finish. You'll find if you're using things like Windex, anything acidic based, anything ammonia based, they tend to make the finish go cloudy. It's not a quick process, it happens over quite a long time, but you're not doing your finish any favours if you're using those sorts of products. The Nova stuff is really, really good. They've actually got three in the range, I believe. The third one is a very coarse product for cutting down deep scratches. I don't really worry about that one. If I've got any scratches that are bothering me, I tend to use the number 2, which is a fine scratch remover. And of course, for general cleaning and polishing, this is a liquid finish, a pump spray. The number 1, you've got to get yourself some of this stuff. It's very, very good for wrapped finishes. Okay, so the first step, of course, is we want to get all the skins off your drum. So we'll do that now. I'll get the Designer Tom out of the way for now. Okay, so now you can see here it's you know, filthy dirty and needs a good clean. But now that I've got the heads off, the first thing I want to do is I want to check the bearing edge. The bearing edge needs to seal against the drum head, and once that thing is sealed, then the drum can be tuned. So if there's any imperfections, any dents, any chips, anything like that that might stop this edge from being nice and smooth and connecting with the drum skin all the way around, then you need to do something about it because it's going to be very difficult to tune otherwise. So I'm just running around with my finger here. This feels really, really smooth. It's a nice, consistent edge all the way around. That's great. That's what we want. On the other side, same thing again. Now, of course, a lot of dirt and gunk can build up in this bearing edge, so I can't stress enough, if you want your drum to tune well, you've got to keep this edge clean and you've got to keep it true. So make sure that whenever you take your heads off, that you're always having a look at this rim, make sure it's all in good condition. Some people, when you have got little fine nicks and scratches, some people do sand it down a little bit. If it's a very minor piece of damage, what I tend to do is just get a candle, just rub a candle in there, and that will help to fill in any minor imperfections and help it seal without having to sand the drum down, which of course is an irreversible process. So I'm going to go one step further now, and I'm actually going to take the lugs off this as well because I really want to give the shell a good clean. So off we go. Okay, so I've now taken the lugs off my drum. The badges are still here. I could get a little spanner and remove those as well, but for the sake of the exercise, I'm not going to bother. So now we're ready to clean the drum. Now, again, because this is a plastic finish, it's a wrap shell, I'm going to use the Nova spray and my cleaning cloth always a good idea to have a separate cleaning and buffing cloth, just to make sure that you're not sort of cross-contaminating and putting the dirt back on. Although I'm going to go completely against that advice right now and just use the same cloth. Always spray on the cloth and then wipe that on the drum. Don't spray it directly on the drum. If you do that, of course, you're going to get some of your spray into the holes and behind some of these little pieces, and you might not be able to get it out, and who knows what it could do down the track. So remember, the bottom line here is look after your drum. Once they're gone, they're kind of gone. So yeah, here we go. So a little bit of spray. So this Nova spray is kind of the Windex we should have for our drums. So it's not harmful, cleaning everything up. Quite a nice finish actually, this one. And of course this will work on any wrap drum. It doesn't have to be a high quality drum. It can be, a $400, $300 cheap second-hand piece of, practice kit, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. As long as you stick to the same principles. Remember, take the hardware off, always look after the shell, use good quality products that are not going to damage the finish, and a good quality cloth. These cloths here, I think these are about $20. You can get them from, your Mal's or your auto shops. Decent auto shops will have this sort of gear. Okay, so the shell's pretty much polished up. It's looking really good. Now, here's the other thing that everybody seems to forget, and this is vital. I was saying before about how the edges of the drum need to be in good condition in order to be able to tune them well. There is another thing that affects your tuning, and that's the roundness of the shell. Now, drums should be made round. If the drum's not round, you've bought yourself a dud. And it's very easy to check for that. This is where our tape measure comes into it. So pick a point across the drum, just measure the distance here. So we've got from edge to edge, what have we got there, about 25.5 mil. And now you go perpendicular, 90 degrees to where you've just measured, and you measure again. And I've got 25.5 centimetres, sorry, not mils, 25.5 mils. But the point is, it's exactly the same distance across a 90-degree angle. So in other words, the distance out this way is the same as the distance out this way, so it's round. If you have more than around about, 3 millimetre deviation, your drum's pretty much considered out of round. And that if that is the case, you're probably in a little bit of trouble. You can try and bend it back in. I've heard of people using sort of rubber hammers and trying to hammer them back in, or sitting on them and doing all sorts of stuff. But having an out of round shell is not a good situation to be in. So, and this can actually affect top end drums as well as basic level drums. It all really comes down to the quality of manufacture and, of course, how well you maintain the drums, what conditions you've put them in. You don't want to put the drums in humid environments. Obviously, you don't want to put them under stress. Get good cases for these things if you're ever moving them around, because once that drum does go out of round, it's going to be very, very difficult to tune. It's never going to sound as good as it could. So, all right, so now the drum's polished up. Of course, we can polish the lugs, and that's one of the most striking features of the thing, is when all the chrome's all shiny. You don't have to go through the full polishing and cleaning, but definitely make sure all of the gunk is out of these. You can use compressed air can. You can use a toothbrush. People use some WD-40. I don't use WD-40 myself. I find that tends to strip the lubrication. I tend to, like with tuning bolts and things, what I will do is I will use the WD-40 to clean them, and then I'll just get a little bit of petroleum jelly, like Vaseline, and just sort of work my finger into the grooves. Not big globs of the stuff, just in there so that there's a little bit of lubrication on it, and that's it. You don't want to be clogging up the tuning bolt, the threads and things like that. They want to be lubed but not full of gunk, because obviously if they're full of gunk, that gunk is going to collect dirt, and then of course everything's going to seize up and you're up for new lugs or a new kit. So yeah, keep things very, very clean. Try to use a minimal amount of product. All right, so now that I've polished the shell and now that I've polished these things, I'm going to get them back on. Just be aware, the design of your lug, by the way, they're going to be different from model to model, but these little grommets will come out. You can clean those as well. Don't be afraid to get in there with a little brush or a cloth and clean all those out as well, because they can fill up with garbage too. You find little bits of wood chips and all sorts of stuff in there, so give them a good clean as well. And now we'll go ahead and put everything back on the drum. Okay, So I've got my lugs back on now. I haven't put the skins back on, all the rims, but you can see there, everything's cleaned up, everything's looking really nice. That's the way we want it. So, quick overview. When you take the skins off, check the bearing edge. Make sure that it's not damaged. There's no chips out of it, no scratches, no dings out of it. And if there are, then there's a couple of things you can do. You can either sand it down until it's flat if you feel game to do that, or as I do, get yourself some paraffin wax or a candle and just rub it around there until it creates a seal and it's smooth to the touch. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want big hunks of candle. They're just nice 2 or 3 times around, then just get a cloth and just wipe away. Same with all of the components within the lugs and things like that. If you're going to clean them out, don't go crazy with chemicals. Don't leave big globs of, you know, Vaseline or whatever it is you're going to use to sort of lubricate the parts. You want to keep everything clean, because anything that doesn't belong there is just going to attract dust. So yeah, keep them very, very clean. As for the finish, of course, this is a plastic finish. I've gone for the Novus polish, as I said before. Try and lean away from things like Mr. Sheen, Windex. They've all got quite harsh base compounds in them, and they can make the plastic finish go cloudy and deteriorate over time. You really don't want that. This stuff is actually really cool. Get yourself a bottle. You can find it in a couple of places. Just do a search online, you should be able to find it. Just to get back to what I was saying before, if I get this drum out of the way for a second, for painted finishes or lacquered finishes like we see on the Sonor here, you can see if you look up close, it's got a wood grain in there, and this is actually painted, lacquered, so a completely different process than wrapping with plastic. What I'd do for cleaning that is I'd go back to my hardware store, the same place that I got this beautiful Meguiar's cloth from, and I actually use more Meguiar's products. If I have fine scratches in this lacquer, I use this guy here. This is a Tech Wax. Any auto wax will do it. Just make sure that you're not getting car polish, because car polish is a cutting compound, and of course that's going to rip things away. You don't really want to be doing that. So the wax will actually fill in and will buff clear, and that's what you want, so you won't be able to see those scratches anymore. If you don't have scratches and you just wanted to give it a good overall clean, Car Detailer is actually very, very good for that. Again, don't use your Mr. Sheens or your Windex. This here, this is an ultimate detailer, so this is a pH neutral solution that Meguiar's uses, and they use it on show cars, and obviously where they're very particular about damaging the finish. So if it works good on $1 million cars, it's pretty good for your drum shell as well. Once again, as I said before, spray it onto the cloth, then wipe the drum. Don't spray directly onto the drum, and you're pretty much good to go. So hit back if you've got any questions, and if you want to see any other videos on anything that you have questions about, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Thanks again.